For years, Western has been the hidden gem of the Northwest. Historically, we are a community of activists, social innovators, and social entrepreneurs, and we are going to start sharing the stories of change makers all across campus and within our community. I'm Danica Kilander, and welcome to Table Talk. We're going to talk about sustainability and how it permeates all across campus, and we're going to learn about water-related initiatives that have been happening here as well. Stay tuned. We are honored to be joined by Sara Purington. Sara, we're going to talk today about water and what you've been doing here at Western Washington University, but just to give us a little bit of background, will you tell us about your childhood and where you grew up and a little bit about your family, please?
I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and my family started a nonprofit organization called Elios Project that does clean water projects in East Africa. And when I was about 14, we moved our whole family over to Nairobi, Kenya, and my dad started working within communities there to drill wells, provide filtration systems, really just find ways to work with communities to bring clean water.
How did you end up at Western Washington University and then in Fairhaven College?
Well, it was definitely a long ride to get to Fairhaven. It took me a little while to kind of figure out what I was going to do next, but I always knew it was going to be something around maybe getting back to Kenya and working with communities. So I started in community college at first, just kind of seeing what was out there, getting my feet wet in the college experience, and then transferred over to Western, not even knowing about Fairhaven College, and then meeting people and taking a class, and then eventually being part of that program, and it just really transformed my educational experience, and I got to study things I was really passionate about and ended up shaping my education around water studies and looking at global disparities in terms of water issues.
So what is it that really lights you on fire when you think about it? Why would you take the extra classes and make that a focus in your education?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it is just the basic need for water that every human has. I mean, you need it to survive. You can't go without water, and especially clean water is really important to every human. So a lot of it kind of comes down to that human rights aspect of it, that everyone needs access to water, and really just seeing especially what is happening around the world in terms of water issues and the disparities happening in terms of global south and global north and the inequalities that you see. And
can you explain that concept of global north and global south?
Oh, yeah. Just seeing, the global north, the more developed countries like Europe and America having really easy access to water within nearly every home. And then seeing, the global south, Africa, South America, seeing, women especially having to travel miles to reach clean water. And maybe even then it's not a very clean source. So just seeing, why is this happening? I think that was just a huge question that I brought into my education of why is this going on, and what are the solutions especially. And a big part of that also came from a Fairhaven class that I took with Shirley Osterhaus, The Right to Water, and that really just got me really passionate about what was going on and learning more about these issues that I had seen but not really understood the bigger implications and what was going on a global scale too. So.
Right. The Students for Sustainable Water, because I'm curious, was it an activist group, was it an information group, was it just other students who were interested, kind of a collaboration community?
Yeah.
What did you envision when you first started it? And then tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you took on.
Sure. Well, I can tell you a little bit of a history of the group. So it started very small in 2010 by students from the campus sustainability course at Huxley, which is a course where students design what they think would be a cool sustainability project for the university, and then see if they can maybe get it funded or get it happening. And one of those was a student wanting to get rid of bottled water and install more of the water refilling stations. So she was able to achieve that through the green energy fee and get more filtration systems. But then she really wanted to see also bottled water be removed from campus. But then she graduated, which happens with a lot of students. They're only here for 4 years. They can only do but they can only do so much. So what's awesome is when things that students are starting to work on get picked up by kind of the next generation of students. So myself and other students kind of took up this activism that she was working on, and along with some other students, and kind of tried to see, okay, what's next? What do we need to do? Who are the people we need to reach out to? And eventually, got more students interested as we tried to get the word out. And the next thing we did was get an initiative on the Associated Student ballot, where we asked students, we see this as a problem. How do you feel about it? Do you want to see the university get rid of bottled water?
And let me pause for just a moment there. Explain why bottles of water are a problem.
Yeah,
please.
Good point. There's definitely a lot of different reasons. One of the most obvious is the environmental issue in terms of the plastic that's often not recycled, ends up in oceans and landfills. For me personally, it comes back to that human rights aspect as well, that everyone should have access to clean water. And for us here in Bellingham, Lake Whatcom, is such a great source of water, such a clean source, and we have access through that with our tap water.
Tell us a little bit more about how we got the water bottle ban initiative on the ballot.
Yeah, so a lot of that was about education. So going out and meeting with students, going into classrooms, talking about these issues of why it was important, and really just trying to educate campus. And also just hear from students, did they feel strongly about this as well? Were we the only ones, or did they really want to see this happen? And we really overwhelmingly saw student support. It was really awesome to maybe be tabling in Red Square here on campus and have students, holding out their reusable bottles, being like, yeah, like, we support this.
Oh.
And that was just really inspiring of seeing, this is what the students wanted. So we eventually got on the ballot and won with 72% of the votes in favor.
72% of the Western community voted for the water bottle ban.
In favor of the ban.
Wow.
Yeah, of the students
Perfect.
that voted. Yeah.
Sarah, I really want to thank you. I want to thank you for seeing the problem and addressing it and taking the initiative. And, I think sometimes it might be easier for one person to push through, but for you to have worked with so many and to make this a community thing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your work at Western.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks.
It is my pleasure to introduce Shirley Osterhaus, who is joining us here today. I actually hope to have you on the show quite a few times because we always want to sort of bring in that human rights, social justice issues. But specifically, I'd like to have a conversation today about water. I'm correct in thinking that you actually teach a class on water rights and water issues. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into water?
Sure. I wish I should have looked up the date, but I think it was in like 2005 when Greenfest first had its big event in Seattle. They were doing these all over the nation, and I went to that, and I went to one of the talks, and it was by Maud Barlow, who is a Canadian who runs the Blue Planet Project and the Food and Water Watch. And she did a talk on the global water crisis, and I was pretty much blown away by all that she had to say. And I immediately got her book and have been reading books ever since. And she does it clearly from a human rights perspective, and that's why I think it resonated so strongly with me, because that's where I come out of. I'm not a scientist, so I don't do the science of water. But she just spoke about water as a human right, and she has been the person that has been most instrumental in Canada and internationally to really get water as a human right implemented with the United Nations, and that happened in July of 2010. So now water is named as a human right with the United Nations, and it means that people should all have access to clean water and sanitation services. I mean, it's happening here, water issues, and part of, I mean, at the same time that it's a human rights issue, we have all these forces that are working against upholding that right for people, and instead of a human right, it's often seen as a profit-making business.
Yes.
So you have the privatization of water, which is what, like even with, bottled water, as I think you had Sarah talk about. corporatization of water, where all the huge big water companies that go into other countries, like, again, affecting the global south in heavy ways, go into those countries and drill for water, for bottled water. And they then take the water resources of another people for profit making and selling.
I'm just so grateful that you're here and sharing some of sort of the atrocities that we might not discuss on a daily basis. I'm also really curious about where we've been effective and maybe who has been effective in combating it. So Sarah spoke a little bit about education.
Yeah.
Just talking about it now makes a big difference for anybody that's going to watch the show. But then also, what are some of the other, so would you recommend a water bottle ban across the United States? Would you recommend water refilling stations everywhere? Or where should we prioritize these next steps for people who want to get involved?
Well, I do think, yeah, I mean, first of all, everybody just being really mindful that they do use their water bottles and refill. And yes, cities, I think, could bring back drinking fountains. You don't find too many of those around anymore, but things like that where people could get water, the poor could get water off the street instead of needing then to go to a store and buy water. I think it's atrocious that we also here in Bellingham have boats on our watershed. One of the only places probably in the United States where motorboats are allowed on a watershed. That kind of thing, or what we do to, our stormwater runoff. I mean, I think the city has done a great thing right now, putting these little rain gardens in all different street corners, you know, to purify more of the water that goes down the drain. So those kinds of things are all good, and I think, I mean, I was elated when we got the water ban for the bottled water here. Now, the bottled water ban here on campus, I thought that was great. But then pretty quickly the same counters were filled with flavored bottled water.
Yes, I noticed
so
that as well.
There's a whole effort, I think, that has to be happening around educating people on all of that.
This is your moment to be our water expert, so feel free to run through the pieces that either you haven't covered or that you want to clarify.
Well, I just think it's really important that we know that we're going to run out of fresh, clean water. With what's happening with pollution, what's happening with fracking, what's happening with the privatization of water, what's happening with climate change, we're going to run out of clean, fresh water unless we do something really to protect it and to preserve it and to be mindful of what our own usage is of it. And that's on an individual level, but we also have to work on a systemic level where we really challenge big businesses, big corporations, like, the water, about the Keystone Pipeline, not letting that go through aquifers, not letting the Bracken oil fields go through rivers in Canada. That will spoil the freshwater sources.
If any of us in the audience want to learn more about water, where are some of the resources that we could turn to? Like, is there like one top website that we at least start with, or?
Well, there's just so much. I mean, it's amazing what's out there right now. But Food and Water Watches, I'm just going to name that one now because Maud Barlow has worked strongly with that one.
Food and Water Watch. Okay.
And they've done a lot with the ban on bottled water also.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share before we go?
Preserve water.
Thank you. Shirley, I really, really want to thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
And I do promise to have you back because you're just a wealth of information. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We have Katie Sowinski joining us today. Katie, will you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the water bottle ban at Western?
Absolutely. So in the spring of 2012, I ran for the AS Board of Directors, and during that same spring, there was a student initiative run by a group, Students for Sustainable Water, and they ran an initiative to get students to vote to ban plastic bottled water bottles off of our campus. And so when that passed, and when I was elected as the Vice President for Student Life during 2012-2013 year, we worked together, the Students for Sustainable Water and myself, to get that done.
And what are some of the steps that you had to take and work, what was that collaboration like?
It was kind of hectic. So we had to work with various different campus groups. So I was working with that club, the Students for Sustainable Water Club, my fellow members on the Board of Directors. University Housing and Dining was kind of the big one. There was also a lot of talk and collaboration that we had to do with athletics and other groups on campus that were essentially getting funding from this surplus, I guess, of funding that comes from our contract with Walton Beverage, and water bottles being being what is the word I'm looking for?
Like part of the profit stream, you mean?
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Would be something we had to consider in terms of like, well, if we take water bottles away, how do we make up for that funding that goes to athletics and the tutoring center and stuff like that? So all of these campus groups were part of the process at one point or another.
So we did, with some other interviews, talk a little bit about the privatization of water, right? So I can understand that there might have been a little bit of resistance or at least some kind of bureaucratic hurdles that you had to face. What was some of the other resistance that you encountered?
It was mostly that, at least on the administrative side, like trying to grapple what the funding kind of consequences would be. But as far as what actually happened with that, it was like there was solutions all of a sudden and things just kind of fell into place. Other things that were of consequence would have been like funding that would have gone to the tutoring center, but we wanted to see, that funding come from other places that didn't need to come from like a profit of water bottles, which water bottles are devastating to our environment. They show up in oceans and in landfills everywhere, and we have free access to water. We get our water from Lake Whatcom, and we have that access, that free access to water. And so why would we pay for bottled water when we have that access that other people don't?
Yes, we have quite a privilege. So I can actually feel your excitement about this.
Yeah.
Did you have any passion about water or water issues before you before you were on the AS board?
I don't know that I specifically knew a whole lot about water issues specifically before I was on the board, but I was always kind of an environmentalist. I always tell people a story about when I was in the 5th grade and we learned about salmon, and ever since then I was like, oh my gosh, I have to turn off the faucet or I'm killing the fish.
Right.
And so I think from a very early age I would consider myself an environmentalist, and I wanted to work on this as soon as it came, to be that I was going to be the one to do it. I was very excited to work with everyone.
If you could pick one kind of most compelling reason why this was so exciting for you, and mostly I'm looking at help us understand why water issues are so important. What was the one compelling thing that you're like, when we hit the hard days, I have to do it because of this?
Okay, that's a good question. I think that it really comes down to knowing that I'm living in a place where we're very privileged to have access to water, and other people in the U.S. and other people outside of the U.S. don't have that same access. So when we when we refuse to acknowledge, I guess, that privilege, I kind of get upset because I want people to realize that like we have it really good here and we don't need this overpriced, highly like profitized, I'm not sure if that's a word, but like
we'll let it be a word today. It's your word now.
This highly like profitized thing, be running what our concepts of clean water is as well, because there's also this whole other concept around how bottled water isn't even the cleanest water that we have access to.
If this is a community member watching this from Tacoma or Ohio, how can they affect change around water rights in their own communities?
Well, you've seen it happen in several cities across the nation, I believe, like I think it was San Francisco maybe, and another smaller town in the Midwest banned bottled water as a city. And so I think you could very easily like push for smaller cities and even bigger cities like San Francisco to jump on something like that, to recognize what benefits banning bottled water would do for the environment and for the community and for economic equality.
Katie, what do you foresee as sort of the future in this area? Like, how is Western going to influence the community around us?
Absolutely. So Western puts out incredible leaders into our community. Western has been the lead on so many issues. I mean, recycling in Bellingham started at Western. Western was the first huge group in the community to start recycling. And then from there, recycling picked up in the city. And Bellingham has already banned plastic bags, and so I think it's completely reasonable to assume that in the next 10-15 years that students will probably move to get something like water bottles banned as well, because it's already happened in major cities like San Francisco and smaller cities in the Midwest.
Katie, I really want to thank you for coming. I want to thank you for all that you've done to help ban water bottles and you know, move forward water issues and educate us. And certainly thank you for showing up today to share your information. Yeah. And now we are joined by Clarissa Mansfield. Clarissa, can you tell us a little bit about what you do here at Western?
Yes, I am the communications coordinator for Western Libraries, and so I work out of the admin office, but I get to write feature stories about things the library is involved with and work on publicity and marketing for events and things like that. So.
And we are specifically actually interested in hearing about how the library got involved in some of the water issues, water rights, water initiatives that are happening here on campus. So can you talk to your role in that, and then also how you even got that role?
Sure, yeah. A few years ago, the Dean of Libraries at the time, Chris Cox, was interested in finding out more about the hydration station water bottle refill stations that were going in around campus. And so he made some inquiries and learned about the Green Energy Fee Grant Program, which piqued some interest among a few of us. There's a librarian, Rob Lepresti, and myself became very interested in finding out more about that.
And just for our viewers' sake, what is the Green Energy Fee? Can you tell us
Yes.
maybe the shortened version of what you learned?
It is actually a really awesome program. We are really lucky at Western to have access to the Green Energy Grant Fee Program because it's something that allows faculty, students, and staff to collaborate on experiential learning projects that have some kind of outcome related to environmental ed or sustainability.
Okay.
And so it's tied to something, an initiative or an idea or an educational project. Usually it's student-led, and then faculty and staff get to work collaboratively with the students. So at the time I was also going back to school for environmental education master's program through Huxley, and so there were a lot of overlap between my interest and then the library's interest, and then two students that I met who wanted to also pursue this same project. But they're wonderful. They were part of Students for Sustainable Water, and they came to us, wanted to work with us, and we knew that there were some other hydration stations already on campus, so we wanted to make ours complement those, but be also a little bit different and tie it to the library specifically.
Okay.
So we looked at what if we combined the hydration station project with information, access to information. That's what the library is all about. And so if there was a way to centralize information for people when they are looking for information about sustainability on campus or information about environmental ed or anything like that, then there would be a way to have this natural complementary project. So we came up with the concept. Seth Vidania actually pitched this idea, and it was the one kind of unifying theme that got us really excited of having a sustainability wall. And so we could feature library resources. We could rotate out these resources depending on whatever the theme of the quarter would be, and then have it next to this hydration station, drawing attention to water issues, Lake Whatcom, our wonderful local water source, and the AS clubs. So we created this bulletin board where the AS clubs can also advertise their events. It's managed through the Environmental Center on campus. And there's a calendar, and then they can put up flyers for things that they're doing, and it's sort of like a centralized place. And it was a great project between the libraries and students. And we are such a highly trafficked location. It made it perfect. If you go right in Wilson Library, you see it when you kind of first walk in. It's off to the left there, and it gets used like crazy, the water bottle station does.
So what kind of themes have you had so far on that board?
So the very first quarter, the project took a while, so our unveiling of it was last spring. And then that very first quarter, we featured issues related to water as a human rights issue, as an access issue, books about water, documentaries like Tapped that talk about the bottled water industry and why that's a social justice issue.
Right.
And then this past quarter, we have pulled out resources related to water restoration projects. Like we were also featuring the Elwha exhibit from the Burke this last quarter. So we pulled out resources related to the Elwha and to river restoration and things like that. And then we haven't decided next quarters yet. We need to work on that and see what we're going to do.
We've got a month.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of time.
Have you heard much feedback from students or community members, faculty or staff around this project in particular?
students, I just know every time I walk by, they're using the water bottle station, which is great.
Yes.
I've had some really good talks with different students, the 2 students that were part of the project, and then others from Students for Sustainable Water, about how in order for something like this initiative to go through, you have to provide a viable alternative to people.
Yes.
And then also...
And thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, give them
Yes.
kind of some context and some understanding of why it's important. And then I think the station does that. And overall, the feedback's just been really positive, and I'm really happy that it all worked out, and it's been good. And it's made us think about what other Green Energy Fee Grant Program projects could we work on with the library with students. It's such a wonderful program. It's such a great opportunity.
What are you anticipating in the future? Are there any kind of big, and you don't have to tell us a specific project, but maybe an issue that you think you might be tackling next?
Well, personally, and I can't, even though I'm in the communications corner for the library, I don't want to speak for the library, but people in the library know this is an interest of mine. I would love to do something that draws attention to alternative energy. I joked at my thesis presentation, solar panels on the Sky Bridge, and the dean did not say he was against that. I'm dreaming big, and I don't know that that could even happen, but we've got that wonderful club on campus, Students for Renewable Energy.
Yes,
and that would be another potential way to partner with some great students and see what we could do. And I'm kind of open to anything at this point, but there's definitely a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, thank you so much for your vision and for all of your work on that, and thank you for sharing that with us. Is there any kind of final piece that you'd like us to know or consider?
Oh, just that really at Western, I think we're so lucky to have the students on these kinds of projects and other things and the initiatives. Our students are so committed and passionate and inspiring, and I learn from them every day, and that was another benefit from this, is I got to learn from them and be inspired by them and think about things in a different way. So that's the main thing, is we're lucky to have the students that we do.
Thank you, Clarissa. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thanks. That's it for our show today. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like more information on the issues we covered, please check out these resources. I'm Danica Kilander, and I'll see you next time on Table Talk.